Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Rip'n Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rip'n Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Hello. Hello. This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Rip'n Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Darkwolf's Den.
The Darkwolf's Den Show on Rip'n Common Sense Radio.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the DarkWolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live worldwide from a secret mountain cave hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the DarkWolf's Den Show for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and tomorrow night, both we're going to cover viewer-requested topics, and both of these topics, as you're going to see, go hand in hand. Tonight, you have tuned in to hear us talk about psychic animals, psychic pets. Do pets have a sixth sense, perhaps even a seventh sense, right? Do they have senses we don't understand, and are they able to communicate with us on levels that science says are, quote, impossible, end quote? We'll get into all that and more here in just a moment, but first, today in history. On this day in 30 AD is the day that scholars estimate for Jesus' crucifixion by Roman troops in Jerusalem. The alternate date suggested for this date is April 3rd, and that is today's Today in History. I wonder if Jesus had a pet. If so, I wonder if the pet was able to predict his death, right? To predict Jesus' death. I don't know, that's interesting because, you know, there are stories of animals that have been able to do that, right? To predict the deaths of people. A couple years ago, there was a really popular news story about a cat that could do just that.
The staff at one Rhode Island nursing home jumps into action whenever Oscar the cat visits one of its residents.
Because, as we'll find out here in a minute, Oscar is a special cat. He has a very special ability about him.
It seems Oscar not only has 9 lives, but also a sixth sense about death. Richard Schlesinger spoke to staff members about the bedside manner of one extraordinary animal.
When did you first notice that there was something about Oscar?
Well, we noticed about 1.5 years ago that he was a rather amazing cat. That's when he sort of first started to make some of his visits. Since that time, we've kept very close tabs on him, and he's not a cat that's wrong very often.
So what does he do? Tell me.
Usually anywhere from 2 to 4 hours before somebody might expire, he enters the room, and often if the family doesn't object and they're in attendance, he'll jump into bed with the resident and curl up next to them. Oftentimes he'll purr.
Kind of scares me. I've been recently adopted by a cat. I need to rethink the happiness of that idea, right? But no, seriously, this is an interesting skill, right? The cat within 2 to 4 hours of the death would go and lay with the patient and comfort the patient into the death process. Specifically the patients that were about to pass away, he would choose. Now, this is amazing that he would know that information hours prior to the person actually passing away.
How many times has he done this?
We figured that it was about 25 times over the course of the last 1.5 years.
Has he ever been wrong?
To my knowledge, some patients obviously leave the nursing home and go to the hospital. So those types of patients he doesn't get. But for the most part, with patients that are here, he's been pretty accurate. I know actually of no event where he wasn't at the bedside.
So he's got 100%.
He's
predictable accuracy?
Very accurate. The reason why I wrote the story is really because it's an amazing story that's happening in a location that few people know anything about. With cases of end-stage dementia, many times patients are dying alone. They've outlived their loved ones or their loved ones live elsewhere. In these types of cases, he's able to provide them with companionship, something that's truly remarkable. Obviously, he's not a replacement for the wonderful care that's delivered at this facility from the nurses to the doctors to the hospice providers. Oscar is sort of part of the end-of-life mix that's provided here. In other cases where there is family, he's allowed us to notify them.
So this sixth sense has become a very valuable tool to this hospital. But wouldn't you be a little worried if the cat chose you?
Are there patients who are afraid when Oscar shows up?
The important thing to remember is that this is really a terminal dementia unit. Patients, unfortunately, here have, in most cases, lost the cognitive ability to understand the meaning behind Oscar. Perhaps that's a fortunate thing. Basically, they might recognize that a cat is in bed with them, and for many that is actually quite comforting. There's been very good data about cats in nursing homes and dogs in nursing homes and providing comfort care in an environment that is very similar to a home environment.
So what kind of cat is he? I mean, aside from this odd ability that he has, is he a nice cat?
Oscar is not always the friendliest cat. He's not friendly to, he can be bribed like many animals, but he is not a cat that will spend quality time with residents on the ward unless they're about to die. He's not a cat that likes to spend a lot of time with staff. He keeps to himself.
And an absolutely incredible skill and a job to have. And what amazement that is, right? The cat itself knows hours, 2 to 4 hours before the incident occurs that the person is going to pass away. Before any other human on this planet knows, Oscar the cat knows. And that is absolutely mind-boggling to me. How does he know? What is the trigger that lets him know? And of course, Oscar is an extreme case, and not all animals present this specific ability to detect death. However, it has been noted that most all, if not all, animals have a psychic ability, at least to some degree. Animals, especially that are pets, right? Like cats, dogs, and other creatures. Well, there's one doctor who has looked into this. If you remember in our January episodes on consciousness, we heard a lot from Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, and a couple times he mentioned his book, Animals That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. Well, we're going to dig into that information from the good doctor this evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back after a couple months away from the show, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake.
One of the commonest kinds of telepathy that we heard about with cats was their ability to know when their owners were planning to take them to vets.
It turns out that on the whole, cats aren't exactly huge fans of the vet. Who'd have guessed it, right?
Many cats respond to this intention by disappearing. When I received several hundred accounts of this behavior from people in America, Britain, Germany, and other parts of the world, it seemed that this was a very common kind of experience. And of course, when it happens, it's annoying to the cat owners because they have to cancel the appointment or search all over for the cat. And people soon learn that if they get out the carrying basket, the cat's going to disappear. So people don't get the carrying basket out, and the cat still disappears.
So then you can make the argument maybe the cat has overheard you making the appointment for the vet, or the cat, seen or heard you do something that triggered it to know. Well, that's not necessarily the case either.
Sometimes people make their appointment for the vet when they're at work, so the cat doesn't overhear the telephone call.
So surely that solves the problem, right?
But the cat still seems to know.
Now, if you're at work, you just decide randomly you're going to make an appointment for the cat at the vet, and you get home and the cat is missing and knows it's going to go to the vet. How does it know? It had no trigger whatsoever except you doing the action.
In order to quantify this, we did a survey of all the veterinary clinics listed in the North London Yellow Pages. There are 65 clinics listed.
And one thing that I really enjoy about Dr. Sheldrake's work is he comes up with ways to test these hypotheses to show whether he's right or wrong. And he'll accept either answer. That's the good thing about a real scientist. But they follow the data wherever it may lead. And this data leads to some interesting rabbit holes.
And my assistant rang up them all and asked whether they ever had a problem with people missing appointments with the cat. 64 out of 65 said this was a very common occurrence. It happened all the time.
So the vets knew it was a thing. Matter of fact, they knew it was a thing to the point that one of them went ahead and solved the problem altogether.
The remaining one said it happened so often they'd abandoned an appointment system for cats. People just had to turn up with them.
Could you imagine? I guess some of you have had to imagine, right? Some of you out there, I'm sure, are cat owners who have had to deal with this. If you are, I would love to hear about it, especially if you're listening after the show or if you're listening just on the radio. Come on over to the YouTube channel, either on Rippin' Rabbit Hole on YouTube or even on DarkWolf's Den Show on YouTube when it gets uploaded over there. And go on over and drop us a line down below. Let us know if you've had to deal with this issue with your cat. If the cat knew you and made an appointment way before you had gotten home or by any means had any way for the cat to know. Could you imagine having to trick your cat, right? Let's go to the park, and on the way to the park, take a left turn and go on over to the vet real quick. Like that one, just accept walk-ins and that's it for cats because there were so many times that there were cancellations.
We had a lot of interesting stories, usually not from the vets themselves, but from their receptionists or assistants, who are the people who dealt with appointments. And here's a typical story from a veterinary receptionist in North London. It's not always the cat basket. The clients know that once they produce the basket, there's not a hope in hell of catching the cats. So it's usually before the baskets have been brought out. People say they get home around 5:30 p.m. and the cat's always on the doorstep, but the day of the appointment, he's not there. I think they've definitely read their thoughts because the owner's not been in all day, so they can't have seen the owners upset or behaving any differently.
In all of these incredibly excellent and valid points, there's no way the cat could have known one way or the other, yet it did. And for those that are cat owners over there in the chat room, tell me, have you guys had to deal with this? I know a couple of you guys are cat owners over there. I personally know a couple of you guys are cat owners. Have you had to deal with this when going to the vet, the disappearing cat syndrome?
So this is one of the things cats are particularly good at. The cats are extremely sensitive, but usually when the owner's intentions directly concern themselves. Dogs often pick up when people are planning to take them for walks. No one finds this surprising if it's at a routine time or if the dog sees them getting out the lead or putting on their coat or shoes or whatever.
So excluding any standard stimuli, any, common sense reason, if you will, that the dog would know that there would be a walk coming up, whether, like he said, putting your shoes or coat on or some signal the dog would pick up on, right? Those aside, that's what we're talking about. Anything besides the most obvious common sense things like this.
The interesting thing is when the dogs do it, when it's an unusual time and the dog's in a different room, even before a person's got up from a chair, many people have told me they just have to think, I'm going to take the dog for a walk, it's a nice day, and the dog will come bounding into the room, really excited.
So you've got to do nothing but even just think about taking the dog for a walk. And the dog knows it's going to go for a walk. You think it's possible? Well, I know that's a pretty wild claim. Is there any evidence to back that up? Of course, the good doctor would not make a claim if he had not already done an experiment, right?
This is something we tested by experiment with a woman who lives in the north of England. She had 5 dogs, and she said this happened all the time. In this experiment, we shut up the dogs in an outbuilding with a video camera running so we could observe them. And at randomly chosen times, she thought for 5 minutes about taking them for a walk before doing so. On the videos, what you see is that most of the time the dogs are just lying around doing nothing, but during this 5-minute period, they get progressively more excited until by the time she comes in, they're sitting in a semicircle round the door, eager and expectant, as she comes in to take them for the walk, and they don't do that at any other time. In this case, of course, we can rule out the obvious standard explanations in terms of body language, dogs picking up intentions, routine, etc.
So when all of the standard stimuli is taken away, how can you explain the animal still knowing something is about to happen?
Many animals know when their owners are planning to give them a treat. When they're just thinking of getting up to go to the fridge or a cupboard to get out some special treat, the dog or cat will come bounding in, excited and expectant.
So, dog owners, have you noticed this, that dogs have a tendency to read your thoughts even from the other room? If you think about taking them for a walk, all of a sudden they act like they know you thought about it and they're ready to go for a walk. Or if you think about giving them a treat, all of a sudden they show up having excited, ready to get a treat. Have you had this sense before? Or you think about getting up, get some food, and the moment you go to move, the dog jumps up and heads to the kitchen, for instance? I know I've seen that in my own life a couple times. What about you dog owners in the chat over there? Are you guys listening afterwards? Go ahead and put in the comment section below afterwards or in the chat right now over on YouTube. Let me know, dog owners, have you experienced this with your animals?
The main thing that I've studied in detail, as I mentioned this morning, is the ability of dogs to know when their owners are coming home.
And this is absolutely fascinating.
In the course of my research with animals, after my book, this book, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, was first published, I got a whole new lot of stories coming to me and many more cases coming to my attention, which are absolutely fascinating. And some of the most interesting concern parrots. I'm now convinced that the most dramatically impressive telepathic animals are parrots, particularly African greys.
Yep, you heard that right. Parrots. African gray parrots are the most telepathic of the pets. Not cats, not dogs, parrots. Can you please explain yourself, Doc?
The big advantage of parrots is that some of them can speak. People with dogs and cats often say, if only they could talk. Well, quite a lot of parrots can.
Okay, that's fair enough. They can express themselves a little bit more than dogs and cats. I give you that.
And I've been working in the last couple of years with what may be one of the most remarkable parrots in the world. It's an African grey called Nkisi that lives in Manhattan. I heard about this first from Nkisi's owner, Aimee Morgana, who got in touch with me by email through my website, having read my book. And she thought if I was interested in the kinds of things I'd written about, I might be interested in her parrot. She told me that her parrot had a vocabulary of hundreds of words.
Which in and of itself is highly incredible and impressive, because most parrots, as I know of, only learn about 7 or 8 words, and that's about it. So to have a vocabulary that large for a parrot is absolutely amazing, to say the least. But that's not where the amazing ends. That actually is where the amazing begins.
And that she trained it to use language in a kind of natural way, talking to it as you talk to a baby or a young child. The Nkisi's vocabulary is now about 700 words, and he speaks in sentences. He's uttered at least 7,000 different sentences. Now, the best studied of all parrots is a parrot called Alex that belongs to a woman called Irene Pepperberg, who's now at MIT. Pepperberg's parrot, after 20 years, has a vocabulary of about 200 words. The importance of Pepperberg, though, is that she's demonstrated beyond doubt that parrots can use language intelligently. They can form abstract concepts. They can do, in fact, all the things that chimps and gorillas can do. People have trained chimps and gorillas to speak using American Sign Language. You can't teach them to speak in English using ordinary language because they don't have the right vocal apparatus. But they do use their hands and making gestures. And there have been very impressive results with, starting in the 1960s, with chimps and gorillas teaching them to speak in American Sign Language. It's been shown that they can use concepts, they can use abstractions, and they have what psychologists call a theory of mind. In other words, they can understand that others have feelings and beliefs, a kind of self-consciousness.
And of course, I don't think that's really a surprise to any of us. The idea that chips and monkeys and apes and whatever other gorillas or whatever others they're working with can use sign language and can pretty much mimic a lot of the things the human do, from having a self-consciousness to understanding language and how to use it and the constructs and abstract ideas behind it. However, for a parrot, that's not exactly as expected to be found as in, say, a chimpanzee or a monkey. You expect a parrot to have a, for lack of a better word, a bird brain, but that is not the case.
What Pepperberg has shown is that parrots can do all this too. And why this, and they can actually do it better. Why this was so shocking, surprising, and when she started doing this, controversial, because nobody believed this would be possible. People were ready to credit chimpanzees and gorillas with some limited mental capacities, because they're like us, they have the same kind of DNA, and they have brains rather like ours, although smaller. The parrots are literally bird-brained, and their brain is less than the size of a walnut, and they don't have speech areas the same way we do. They shouldn't be able to do these things.
Which, of course, makes a parrot a conundrum in that aspect, because it shouldn't be able to do anything that it does, and yet...
Yet, what Pepperberg has shown is that Alex can use language in abstractions. She can learn, for example, Alex has learned the word red.
But there's a big difference between learning the word red and the concept of the color red, right? Right.
So you can show Alex a tray of objects, all different colors, and say, give me the red one, and the parrot will bend over and pick up the red object, even if he's never seen that object or anything of that shape before, showing that he's abstracted the word red from particular things.
And abstracted not only the word, but the fact that it is a color. He's put the concept of color together with it, which is a small feat to us, but in all things considered, huge in this case.
He can do this with shapes, he can do it with things that are same or different. And a variety of concepts that human children acquire by the age of 3 or 3.5 have now been acquired by Alex. Well, we've shown with Enkisi that the same kind of thing has happened, but even more so. Enkisi's linguistic skills and development have more or less paralleled those of human children up to about age 4 or 3.5. Enkisi is now 4. Of course, we don't expect this development to continue. We're not expecting him to go through graduate school, get a PhD, and so on.
Is it bad and cynical of me to say that the headline "Parrot graduates from college" would not even surprise me at this point in the world?
But his abilities are quite remarkable. This is the main point of Aimé's research, to study the communication and use of language. She's trying to find more about animal minds and how you can talk to parrots. But as a byproduct of this research...
And the byproduct of the research is going to take us right back into the question at hand of pets being psychic. But as you guys know, that music means we got to go ahead and take a network break right here, so we'll be right back with the second half of the DarkWolf's Den Show right after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We got to stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Ow! That's right. Your weekend has begun. Hi, everyone. It's AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's look at the Darkwolf's Den Show, Psychic Pets? If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of common sense radio, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Now, Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Show will return again tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows start at 7 p.m. 10/9 Central. Believe it or not, he's going to reverse tonight's topic of psychic pets and do the pet psychic tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow night and see exactly how the two subjects correlate with each other in the Darkwolf's Den. Then I'll return Friday night and continue through the rabbit hole of the weekend with cryptocurrency. That's right, we're going to take a look at blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. What does it all mean? Why is there such a big hype around it? And of course, if you are already into it and you understand the hype of it, you're going to enjoy Friday night's show. That's Friday, April 9th, 2021. Then Saturday night, join me as I welcome special guest Mary Frank Cogbill, Saturday, April 10th, and she's going to discuss a fascinating world of miniatures, and we're going to have a lot of visuals that go along with that as well, Saturday night. Then we'll end out the weekend right together, Sunday, April 11th, with a look at cults, cult leaders, some of the known ones, some little known ones as well. We're going to find out what exactly draws someone into a cult and what, more important, allows them to break free and to get away from cult mentality, and that'll end out the weekend right together, Sunday, April 11th, again, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Explore with me the rabbit hole of cults. Now, last weekend we ended our Fantastic Fun Weekend, which happens the first weekend of every month. The Fantastic Fun Show came to a conclusion with Champion Sports Nation stealing the crown and taking the throne from My Life DIY. Congratulations and top hats off to you, CSN. And also on a fantastic evening last night as the weekend continued through to Tuesday night videos and the one-hit wonders that just, I was literally captivated. I love to just sit back and listen to Tuesday night videos because you hear such great music. And again, my top hats off to the Fantastic Fun King, Champion Sports Nation. An announcement I'm going to talk about he made last night, this weekend on Friday. Now back to Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den with Psychic Pets.
This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Oz.
Hey, everybody, it's AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, a.k.a. Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Darkwolf's Den.
The Darkwolf's Den Show on Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Darkwolf's Den Show for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, we are talking about psychic pets. Can animals, or do animals, I should say, have a sixth sense? Are they able to communicate with humans on a level that is above and beyond what science would consider normal or possible to be done? Well, we've looked at a lot of evidence so far to suggest that that may very well be the case. From cats that know when to hide because it's time to go to the vet, even though they've had no signal whatsoever, to dogs that can read the minds of their owners and come for treats or even walks or any other reason that would directly impact the animal. But as we heard at the end of the first half, dogs and cats aren't the only ones to exhibit these qualities. Oh no, the parakeets, or the parrots, are actually the most advanced in these qualities, and one of them actually has started to show a special new skill set of abilities. As we started to hear at the end of the second half, the research developed a new set of data. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show to explain the set of data, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. Doc, what did they find in these experiments?
She noticed that the parrot was responding to her thoughts by saying what she was thinking about.
I'm sorry, Doc, wait, what? The parrot was responding to her thoughts, not her actions, not her body language, her thoughts. In what way was this occurring?
So she'd be looking at a magazine, at a car, and the parrots at the other end of the room can't see the magazine, and the parrot says, that's a great car. And she's looking at people dancing on television. She says they're dancing. This happened so many times. She kept a log. After I first got in touch with her, she started keeping a log. There's now more than 600 spontaneous incidents.
More than 600 spontaneous incidents where the parrot seemed to be reading the mind of its owner. Now, it's one thing to have one incident, but 600, you only need one white crow to prove all crows aren't black. But 600 white crows would make no mistake about it, right? There would be no question at that point that all crows aren't black, that all animals possibly are psychic, right? Well, there's another little mystery that has to do with animals and the psychic abilities of animals, and that is homing pigeons. I know that sounds a little strange, but Dr. Sheldrake, explain to us the issue with homing pigeons.
Now, nobody knows how pigeons do it, and every seemingly reasonable hypothesis is being tested to destruction. We're now in a position where it's just, I think the evidence points to there being some completely unknown means by which they do it. Some form of connection between the pigeon and its home that we haven't taken on board in our model making.
Don't
about
like the
animal
evidence
behavior.
of magnetic particles in the head? And
Well, this is what's satisfied. It's a pabulum for the last 20 years, magnetism. For the magnetic particles may exist in the head. The pigeons may be able to measure the dip of the magnetic displacement. You displace the north, the needle of the compass may dip.
Which on its surface sounds a lot like a logical explanation that just magnetic metals in their head allow them this ability. However,
move them due east or due west, the dip's exactly the same. The magnet won't help them in the slightest, even if they've got one. And
how do you know they're working only on dip?
Well, even if they have a compass, if it's a compass,
maybe it's a compass.
All right, give you a compass, parachute you into some unknown area. You've got your compass. Can you get home?
I can get close enough to home until I pick up other signals, which is apparently.
Can you without a map?
Oh, I have to know where I am relative to where I've been.
Of course, that's the problem.
What do you guys think if I were to drop you off out of a plane into a jungle with no map and no idea of how to get anywhere and nothing to guide but a compass? Do you think you can make it home? I 100% guarantee I couldn't. What do you think? Do you think you could do it? I know maybe one or two you might be survivalists out there, pretty sure of yourselves, but we're talking about a whole species of animal that does just that, right?
Well,
how do you know where you are relative to
you've
home?
migrated there once before. No, I don't. I doubt you could just take a pigeon in an airplane and drop parachuted randomly somewhere.
And of course, I'm sure some of you are logically shaking your head going, yeah, of course you can. Drop a homing pigeon just out of a plane randomly and it'll know where it's going. Surely not. That just totally defeats the doctor's argument, right?
But if
you can. This was done in the Second World War, yes.
Yeah, not only can you in concept, the concept has been tested. Check this out.
In the Second World War, pigeons were taken routinely on Lancaster bombers from the British Royal Air Force Pigeon Corps.
Yes, that is really a thing, or was really a thing. The British Royal Air Force Pigeon Corps
supplied these pigeons. They were taken on Lancaster bombers, and the idea was if they were ditched in the North Sea on the way back from a sortie in Germany, then the navigator had released the map reference. They tie it onto the pigeon's net and let it go in case radio contact was broken. Thousands of lives were saved by these pigeons. Some were released in the middle of the night in freezing fog 100 miles from land, and they got home. The really outstanding ones were awarded medals.
Yeah, you heard that one right too. Not only was there a pigeon corps, but the really good ones earned medals because, I'm sure the pigeons had a wall to hang these on that they made sure to keep straightened every day and polished up, right? My God. But as absurd as this sounds, I promise this is actually going somewhere.
And the record of these can be found in an amazing book called Pigeons in Two World Wars by Colonel Osman. And the meritorious performance list has about 500 examples of astonishing feats. They were literally dropped out of planes in the middle of the night, sometimes in the middle of the winter, in freezing fog, and they got home the next morning, and lives were saved.
Suppose that you had a very simple strategy, that you flip a coin, and you either fly due west or due east until you hit land, and so half of them then will come. Would come west and would arrive at England, and the other half would arrive in the Netherlands.
You have to record the ones that don't make it, which these
But the point is, they do. They first of all, they observe the vanishing direction.
The point is, the ones that make it get the medals, and the other ones you forget about.
Which, once again, is a logical argument that there would be confirmation bias, and you would just ignore the ones that don't fit the confirmation bias. However...
But in experiments, there's been hundreds of experiments done. You see, every one of these ideas has been tested by serious researchers over long periods. And cloudy days, they've been released on cloudy days. They've been released with their time clock shifted 6 hours or 12 hours by keeping them in artificially displaced day lengths for weeks. All these pigeons can home. They can home with magnets strapped on their wings or with Helmholtz coils over their heads.
With blindfolds on?
Yes, frosted glass contact lenses. They've been released up to 200 miles away, and they flop down within a quarter of a mile of the loft. Many of them collide with telegraph poles near the loft, but most of them get home to the home regions. And I have a pigeon loft in Britain. And the key experiment, you see, all these theories, they see landmarks, the frosted glass contact lenses rule it out, the cloudy days, the time shift, the magnets on their wings, every one of these seemingly reasonably remember the way out on the journey. That's been tested with pigeons anaesthetized, taken in rotating drums by incredibly devious routes. When they come round, you release them, they fly straight home. Well, all these theories have been tested. There's been years of research. Yes, they've had their nostrils blocked up with wax. They get home. They've had confusing smells like turpentine put on their beaks. They get home. And just in case that doesn't work, they've had their olfactory nerves severed. Anosmic pigeons. Those get home. Some don't fly at all. But if you use then to overcome the idea of non-specific trauma, they've had xylocaine sprayed on their nasal mucosa, a local anesthetic. Those pigeons home straight off with no delay.
So every one of the common scientific explanations for the reasons that these pigeons are able to home has been completely debunked in experimentation.
It's a fascinating literature. For 30, 50 years, 100 years, Charles Darwin suggested the idea in his paper in Nature in 1873 on the origin of instincts, that they remember the way out, and that was the first theory to be tested. Every seemingly rational theory has been tested and tested and tested, and we've now reached a point where all of these have failed. We're in the realm of epicycles now. People are saying, oh, well, it's not any one of these in particular, but knock out 2 or 3 and the others somehow take over in an unspecified combination.
So this kind of parallels the Mandela effect research in the aspect that, as a theorist in that field, I can't come up with a single theory that explains the Mandela effect. It's been suggested that it could be a combination of ideas or theories, and that I don't discount, but again, that's where it parallels this research here, because it's the same thing. People say, well, maybe it's not one thing, maybe it's a combination of things, and it very well may be, and in this case it also very well may be. However, the good doctor has a solution for this.
Now, my experiment is designed to test this theory to see, I think there's an unknown factor involved. I don't know what it is.
And again, paralleling the Mandela effect research, I've said that many a times about my theories. I think there is an unknown factor.
I think the pigeons are somehow linked to their home. So whereas all previous experiments involve moving the pigeons from their home, my experiment involves moving the home from the pigeons.
And how would you do such a thing as that, Doc?
Hence I have a mobile pigeon loft.
Okay, a mobile pigeon loft. That's interesting.
And so you can train pigeons to move to a mobile loft. It was done in the First World War with the British Pigeon Corps. It had mobile lofts behind the front line. There's another thing Colonel Osmond's book enlightens one about. They were converted London buses. The Japanese had them in the Second World War. I have a fascinating book about the Japanese Pigeon Corps in the Second World War, showing wonderfully Japanese mobile loft somewhere in Manchuria with sort of pointy ends to it. Oriental pigeon loft.
Pigeons are culturally distinct.
The Japanese doing pigeon lofts with style.
But if you move a pigeon, if you move their home, the first time you do it, you move it just 100 yards. And the pigeons are totally confused. Even though they can see the loft, they fly around the place where it was for several hours before a brave one goes in.
And of course, you may think, well, that's just kind of goofy. That's what a wild animal would do, just kind of fly around in circles, confused, right? Well, let's put this in a human perspective.
Just as we would if we went home and found our home had moved 100 yards down the street. We wouldn't just open the door. Yes.
Under any circumstances.
I think I'd be pretty hesitant to walk in the front door if it jumped down the street myself. How about you guys? Then again, with the Mandela effect, it'd be par for the course, right? But you wouldn't exactly go home and it's 100 yards down the street and you just be okay with it and, think nothing of it. You'd be kind of tripped out about it. At least most people would, right?
But after a while, after you've done this 3 or 4 times, you can get them to home. And I've trained these pigeons up to the point where the loft can be moved 4 or 5 miles. And you go back, you take them out, put them in a box, you tow the loft away, you go back to the first point, you open the box, release the pigeons, drive back to see when they arrive, and they're sitting on the roof. Well, so far there's no mystery. This is an area where they could do it by perfectly normal means, fly up in the air, see it. The crucial experiment, I'm sorry to say, I haven't yet done, because the person I did it with who feeds them and has contracted a disease called pigeon lung, which means he can't go in the pigeon loft anymore. It's like asbestosis. And so I'm sorry to say this is an unended saga, but here is a perfectly reasonable experiment. I think the chances of it working are only about 1 in 10, because I think you may need to move more of the home than just the loft, even though I leave half the pigeons in it. But a mobile island, a floating island, or a ship would give one the capacity for moving more of the home. It's an area potentially open to empirical testing. The budget for this experiment so far has been £500. Not very much. This is a poor man's sport, and so one doesn't need big grants for this kind of work. Here is a real mystery, and you'll find people who'll tell you it isn't a mystery, but anyone who actually works in the field and who knows the literature and I've gone into this quite recently in quite a lot of depth, and it's completely unsolved. And so we have this pigeon homing, the homing of dogs and cats, the migration of fish, huge tracts of animal behavior, which have big implications for the evolution of migratory pathways, which can evolve quite rapidly, and so on. Large areas are unsolved, and these could have a great deal of relevance to the understanding of faculties of various kinds that we haven't taken into account. This is one example. I have quite a number of others.
One of many absolutely amazing examples that we've heard tonight of animals that seem to have a sixth sense, if you will. The ability to not only read emotions in humans and read our minds, but also the homing pigeons are able to do things that are, as science would say, impossible, but of course that's a dirty word here, that they just cannot explain yet. Things that seem a little bit supernatural. But what do you guys think, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think animals have a sixth sense, a ability given to them by nature that we don't have? Or do you think it's just barking up the wrong tree? In the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the evidence presented, use a little common sense, and in the end, you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the DarkWolf's Den Show for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. The day may be closing, but don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen, the weekend fun is only just begun. That's right. Make sure you come back tomorrow, Thursday, April 8th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Well, we will be back with an all-new episode of the DarkWolf's Den Show. That's right. Tomorrow night we're going to be discussing pet psychics, from psychic pets to pet psychics. This is going to be another amazing episode, and a viewer requested one just the same, and one that we cannot wait to take on. That is tomorrow, April 8th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, on the DarkWolf's Den Show. That's right. Then on April 9th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, that is Friday, our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit will be back with an all-new episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. On Friday, I happen to know our buddy AJ is going to be talking about cryptocurrency. That's right. It's been a hot topic lately, a very volatile investment vehicle, but definitely one that is worth checking out. Well, AJ is going to check it out on Friday, April 9th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. Then he'll be back on Saturday, April 10th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with an all-new episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show once again. And we're going to be talking about miniatures. That's right. There's a whole world grown up around this idea of these miniature items, miniatures of everything. So it's really intriguing, a topic you're not going to want to miss. Definitely tune in on Saturday, April 10th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for that discussion on miniatures. Then on Sunday, April 11th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit's going to be back one more time to round out the weekend right, with a discussion on cults. That's right, not the occult, but the actual cults. Have you known somebody who's been a part of a cult? Were you a part of a cult? If so, how did you escape, or did you? All that more coming up on Sunday, April 11th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio and RippinRabbitHole.com. Speaking of RippinRabbitHole.com, make sure you hop on over and jump on our mail list. Just sign up for the 24/7 Backstage Lounge 24/7 VIP Pass. That's right. Just sign up for the VIP Pass and you're going to be eligible for all of the amazing benefits of the RippinRabbitHole.com, from our 24/7 Backstage Lounge, where I'll be right after the show, to the Down the Rabbit Hole, our social media alternative over there, and many, many things in between. There's all kinds of fun. We got news stories that are updated every single day, and just lots of interactivity, as well as receiving our email once a week with all the amazing topics that we're going to be covering all weekend long, both the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show and the Darkwolf's Den show. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to go ahead and get out of here. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure to do this show for you guys yet once again. So on behalf of Michael Musco, Chick Mandela Effect, Walt House, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, everyone at Rippin' Common Sense Radio, and our amazing mod team. On behalf of all these folks, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until next time, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah, that's right.
Things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.